Ah, another parking ticket. Here in New York, one of these will cost you $115, which is why it might seem crazy that UPS and FedEx shrug off thousands of them every year, and millions in fines.
That's the thing about fines and corporations. The numbers sound really big, 1 billion, 3 billion, 13 billion, but for a lot of companies, that's just the cost of doing business. Makes you wonder, do fines really matter? I'll give you 3 examples.
Remember the Gulf oil spill? BP agreed to pay $7.8 billion to settle all sorts of claims over that. But for BP, that's about 8 days of revenue.
Shape-ups are revolutionary.
Skechers claimed its shoes would tone your butt. Did anyone believe that? Doesn't matter. They don't. Skechers was slapped with a $40 million penalty, but they sold nearly $1.6 billion worth of shoes in 2012. So that $40 million is just 1 day of sales. Google paid out the biggest fine in Federal Trade Commission history. They had to pay $22.5 million for violating online privacy. But this is Google. It takes all of 5 hours to rake in that much money. $13 billion at JP Morgan, $2 billion at Johnson & Johnson, and nearly $2 billion at the hedge fund SAC.
But for executives, for the people in charge, all those billions can be worth it. That's because the cost is nothing next to the profits that their companies stand to make by doing stuff that gets them in trouble. So do these fines make anyone think twice?
I think an interesting other feature of this is what happens when you find companies that are continually fined. They're kind of serial, bad behaving kind of companies. And I think if you find a lot of those, then it's clear the fine's not having a big impact.
Complicating matters, many of those fines come years after the initial problem. What's wrong with that? Well, every parent knows you can't discipline your kid today for something he did last week.
But that's pretty much the way it goes for corporate America. Fines today for things you did months or even years ago. And keep in mind, it's the corporations and their shareholders that get spanked. Most execs don't even get a timeout.